Pressure and Wes Brisco. Hawk Hogan, you didn't answer my phone calls for 2 years. Did you forget something, Hogan? Hawk Hogan.
Alright, Shove It Show, episode 11. Here are the wrestlers who made the most appearances in TNA wrestling. Gonna start you out with 4 honourable mentions. You get it? 4. If you're from Bridgewater, that's when you hold your entire hand up. Gail Kim, 378 matches. A. Gail Kim really held the standard for what a TNA knockout should be. During her feud with Awesome Kong, she pulled in a lot of new viewers for TNA and they often got the highest rated viewed segments on the show. People often ask that TNA went back to having matches like Gail Kim put on with Awesome Kong back in the day, and she definitely would have been a lot higher up on this list, but she went away to WWE for a while. When she came back, she carried up her good work and had a great feud with Taryn Terrell, which really helped elevate her. The small issue I have with Gail Kim is I feel like she might have held a few of the TNA knockouts back with her constant wins. She would win at everything, like most matches. Gail Kim would go over most people, and there's an argument to be made that she deserved to go over most of those people, but then you could also compare her to being the Triple H of the knockout division. Maybe one day I'll make a video on it. Madison Rayne, 399 matches, D. I'm sorry if I offend anybody with that, but like the disclaimer says, no offence. I feel like Madison was sleeping with someone in power, like the amount of chances she got. She was in a good place in the Beautiful People. She was booked to be a bimbo, like someone who couldn't really wrestle. But then she soon got elevated to being the Knockouts champion. The matches in the division took a real turn when she was the Knockouts champion. She soon dyed her hair dark and started breaking away from the Beautiful People. She then started doing that whole Vicky Guerrero gimmick where she'd scream into the microphone and it would hurt your ears so badly. It was worse than a Chavo Guerrero promo at times. I personally found Madison quite attractive when she had the blonde hair, but when she turned it brown, it kind of killed it for me. Not that Madison's in it for the Hawk, you know, but he sure does make the girls talk. She stayed with the company for a hell of a long time through all the trials and tribulations. She's still there right now. I just watched an episode of TNA for the first time in 3 years and she's on commentary. Then she started putting herself over and announced that she's going to be competing in the #1 contendership battle royal at Slammiversary 2020. TNA just don't learn with this woman. And I guess she is sleeping with someone with a bit of power now, seeing as she's married to Josh Matthews. Supermex Hernandez, 430 appearances. B. Am I being a bit harsh on Hernandez? He could probably make a list of the top 10 wrestlers that TNA misused. But there are some things about him that people seem to forget. Yes, he was the power man of the LAX tag team after Conan left, but TNA did try several times to have single runs with him, and it never quite worked. He was a bit of a Matt Morgan in that respect. I was quite surprised to see Hernandez had 430 appearances. He made more than someone like Devon Dudley, so fair play to him. Hernandez is actually in TNA at the moment as well. The other downside to him is he actually was a bit dangerous in the ring. Like, his moves look quality, they all look scary at the same time. I wouldn't like to take a move from Big Supermex. Maybe his promo skills let him down in the end. Jeffrey Nero Hardy, 445 appearances. C. Jeff Hardy made his appearances through 2 combined runs, one in the earlier days of TNA and then one a bit later on, and they sandwiched his WWE time. The only reason he kept going back to TNA was because of all his legal problems and he couldn't keep his head on straight, but TNA offered a reduced workload, so it was appealing to someone like him. When Jeff Hardy came into TNA the second time, he was hot shit still. It was comparable to a level of when Kurt Angle signed, not quite Hulk Hogan, but almost there. Jeff did have some incredible matches in TNA, but then again, he did have his whole Victory Road incident, which is why I've marked him down a bit here. He then went full circle and redeemed himself and carried on having great matches, and then they had the whole Broken Hardy storyline where he let his brother Matt have the spotlight for a change, which was nice to see. Okay, and moving into the top 10, Kurt Angle, 510 appearances, A. Do you consider Kurt to be a TNA guy or a WWE guy? He made roughly the same amount of appearances for both companies. He is a wrestling cyborg. It's no wonder the guy's broken down now. Like a few of the other guys on this list, he would be responsible for several 5-star matches. Not that I care what some nerd like Dave Meltzer thinks, but from a personal standpoint, when a Kurt Angle match was on the pay-per-view, you paid attention, damn it. Did the whole Christian Coalition versus the Angle Alliance thing, then he did the Main Event Mafia where he was the godfather of the group, then he led the roster against the Aces and Eights as he reformed the Main Event Mafia for a second time, and he also had one of my favourite feuds of all time against Mr. Anderson. Kurt Angle, I bloody love you, man. Kazarian, 553 appearances. B. Wow, I'm surprised. I didn't know Kaz made this many appearances for TNA. Looking up and down this list that I've got in front of me, I'd say that he's the odd one out here other than maybe Supermex. He's not exactly a name synonymous with the TNA brand, but maybe he should be. Did that tag teaming thing with Matt Bentley for a while, and then he did that awful Serotonin faction where he eventually turned on Raven. He had a ladder match against Christian which helped elevate him as a singles star, but sadly it didn't go too much further after that. By the time Hawk Hogan rolled around, Kaz was seen as mainly an X Division star, and that's where he stayed. He was included in the Fortune faction, which was good to see, but he still just seemed to be cannon fodder for the group and wasn't valued much higher than this. Sadly for Kaz, his best run came when he teamed with Christopher Daniels as Bad Influence. They were incredible on the show. They were a real highlight whenever they were on, always making me laugh. They came out with some crazy stuff. Sadly, TNA management didn't think so. They accused Kaz and Daniels of trying to steal the spotlight from everybody else and said they were making it too entertaining, if there's such a thing. Kaz and Daniels left around the same time, and then they carried on teaming together in ROH, and now AEW. Bully Ray, 527 appearances. A. If it wasn't for the latter part of his career in TNA, I wouldn't have given the guy an A. For most of his time in TNA, he was just doing Team 3D with Devon, and they were both so overweight and the commentary team constantly made fun of them. It wasn't as if they were putting on bad matches, they had some great matches with Beer Money and LAX, but they weren't doing anything out of the ordinary, they were just making fun of themselves constantly. Things changed when the Immortal faction rolled around and Bully Ray got to show some more of his mic skills. He was brilliant. His promos with Scott Steiner backstage are gold. If you can look them up on YouTube, you do so. Turn this video off right now and do it. Then by the time the Aces and Eights rolled around, they needed a leader, and it was kept a mystery for a long time. Bully Ray was being built up as a face guy, and was even marrying Hawk Hogan's daughter. It turned out to be a ruse, and Bully Ray was the leader of the Aces and Eights, and he got to have his single heel run finally. It was great, but I think it ended a bit too soon. Will Bully Ray be coming back to TNA? I sure hope so. I think he has unfinished business. Chris Saban, 536 appearances. A. They got as much out of Chris Saban as they possibly could. He was never going to be the World Heavyweight Champion. Wait, I'll come to that. Saban dominated the X Division in the early days. I'm not joking, he racked up so many title reigns when the company was only a few years in. He often had one of the best matches on the card, and his moves were so creative and fresh you hadn't seen anything like it before. Then when he started teaming up with Alex Shelley, they got to do the same moves but together, and it made it even better. In my opinion, these guys were much better than the Young Bucks. They were actually more likeable and they were doing their own thing. The Young Bucks just seemed like a rip-off of the Hardys to me. I'm sorry, no offence. Saban unfortunately got injured and so did Shelley, and it disrupted the Motor City Machine Guns when they should have been on top of the tag team division. TNA eventually bailed on the tag team because it wasn't working, they both kept getting injured, it was such bad timing. Out of nowhere, Chris Saban was the one to beat Bully Ray for his World Heavyweight title. This got a lot of hate online, and no one really talks about it to this day. They mostly focus on the Eric Young World Heavyweight title reign, but Chris Saban's one was more shocking in my opinion. It didn't last long, and soon they highlighted his real-life relationship with Velvet Sky as she was his ring valet. He started treating her badly pretty quickly and turned heel. Nobody really wanted to boo Chris Saban like this though, and this final run with him didn't really come off too great. Christopher Daniels, 593 appearances. A. Yes, I am including Curryman and the times he dressed as Suicide. I can't be completely sure of this number, but it was roughly 593 in total. Shove it if you don't like it. He was one in the early days who competed a lot in the X Division, but he also had a banging tag team with AJ Styles that a lot of people seem to have fond memories of. They then tried to push Chris Daniels as a singles star where he feuded with Sting and he had a kind of mysterious character about him. Sadly, it didn't really click with the audience. Soon Chris Daniels was portraying Curryman, and this allowed him to show off his personality and relax a bit more. You'd see elements of this later on in his career. He was Japanese and he had a plate of curry stuck to his top of his mask. Not sure this would fly nowadays. After that, he continued to be AJ Styles' little running buddy. I think Christopher Daniels suffered a bit as being an AJ Styles shadow for too long. He was also involved in the dreadful Claire Lynch storyline, and as previously mentioned with Kaz, as Bad Influence was really taking off and Chris Daniels was getting to show his full personality with his apple martinis, TNA management nixed the idea. They also didn't like Chris Daniels wearing his superhero t-shirts on TV, even though he was friends with the Marvel guys. Samoa Joe, 609 appearances. C. Oh, that one hurts to say. It should have been an A, it really should have. But when the guy has one TNA World title reign in his whole time in TNA, that is appalling for who he was. People often argue with me over this point. It was one TNA World title reign. Look it up, do your research. I think he stole the NWA title at one point, but he wasn't the official holder of it, so maybe that's where people are getting confused. But really, after his 5-star feud with Kurt Angle, it was all downhill for Samoa Joe. They never knew what to do with him. They had him portraying stupid characters and doing strange things on TV. Most of the time he was just stood in the ring, gritting his teeth, looking like he needed to take a dump. His character turned into something of just being a big loser who did stupid things and then got angry with everybody, when it was always his own fault. Joe never lost the crowd despite how badly he was booked. They always went nuts when he came out, so it makes me wonder, why didn't he get a bigger push? Maybe someday someone will answer that. Abyss, 633 appearances. B for effort. I've done a whole video on Abyss's TNA career. He had a lot of stupid decisions made about him, just like Samoa Joe did. But in a way, he was made to look even more of an idiot. For me, 2010 was the death of Abyss in TNA. When they had him doing that stupid Hulkamania stuff where he was like Hawk Hogan's little disciple, that killed him. In fact, you just had to rewind a few months before that and he was Mick Foley's disciple. So which one was worse? You tell me. Abyss got to where he is on this list because he was so loyal to TNA and turned down chance to go to WWE. It was only a few years ago he actually left TNA. He stuck with them for a long damn time. He continued to have the Monsters Ball matches and often had the best match on the show. Yes, a lot of the time it was senseless violence, but he was putting in so much effort for TNA and you could tell he believed in the product. AJ Styles, 799 appearances. A. Ooh, just missing out on the top 3 is AJ Styles. It's not that surprising, he left in 2013. He didn't stick around as long as the rest of the people on this list. For me, AJ Styles will always be the face of TNA, with Kurt Angle in a second place finish. AJ Styles just didn't have bad matches, and when I first started watching the TNA product, he was what helped me get into it. I'd never seen moves like his. He was so charismatic despite not being that great on the mic. I can't possibly cover everything AJ Styles did in TNA without dedicating a 4-part video. You guys don't need me to tell you how good AJ Styles was. What I will do though is share a really brief story. It's not that amazing. Basically, TNA were performing at Wembley Arena and I'd seen them in Bournemouth a year or two prior, and AJ Styles was the best thing on the night. So when I heard they were coming to London and they were taping TV, I was dead up for it. I got my Cockney mate to come with me as well. I told him how great Styles was, and then we got to the show and found out AJ Styles wasn't actually going to be on the show. We were devastated. It actually put such a downer on me for the whole night just because one person couldn't turn up on the show. But that's how much AJ Styles meant to everybody. Alright, moving into the big dogs now, the top 3. Let's see who we've got. Bobby Roode, 890 appearances. A. Alright, maybe his feud with Eric Young in the early days did get a bit stale and repetitive, but he certainly got to show off what a great heel he was. He owned Eric Young's contract and they did this whole gimmick of Bobby Roode was going to fire Eric Young if he annoyed him anymore, because Eric Young was an annoying little prick back in the day. So we had Team Canada, then he had the stuff of Eric Young, and then soon after he formed Beer Money, which would be the catalyst to help launch Bobby Roode into the main events as he feuded with his partner James Storm. Bobby Roode had always been predicted for greatness, and the Hawkster made the choice to push Bobby over James Storm at the time. He cut his hair and he became the it factor. I personally thought Bobby had a better look with the long hair. Maybe people thought he looked a bit too much like Triple H, I don't know. Bobby did stick around with TNA for a while as they lost all their star power. He was pretty loyal. Not quite to the end like Abyss, but he was loyal. Even James Storm left. Then Storm came back and they started Beer Money again, but it had lost the magic. It was a bit like when DX reformed. It was just two older men trying to act childish and it just didn't come off as great. It came off as a bit corny. Other than AJ Styles, Bobby Roode is the best main eventer TNA ever created. Eric Young, 934 matches. B. Something for me just didn't always click with Eric Young. I found him kind of annoying. He didn't do enough serious stuff for me. For most of his TNA career, he was just a goofball. He was a goofball in Team Canada, he was a goofball when he worked for Bobby Roode, and he was a goofball when he was the TNA TV champion, and then the Knockouts champion with ODB. I think the other problem with Eric Young is he didn't really have that one definitive match that helped put him on the map, or the feud for that matter. His career is very similar to Bobby Roode. They were both incredibly loyal to TNA, and Eric Young was later rewarded by TNA and he was given the World Championship. A lot of people hated on this at the time because they drew comparisons with Daniel Bryan because both of them had beards and both of them had an underdog story, and Eric Young just kind of got pushed out of nowhere. Eric Young is heavily rumoured to be returning to TNA at Slammiversary 2020, so if you like EY, make sure you check out the show. And the number 1 appearance maker in TNA, my friend and yours, last call Cowboy James Storm. 991 matches. A+, shove it up your ass. The Cowboy is my favourite TNA wrestler. I've done an entire video on him, not going to go over it too much, but I will throw in a couple of things that have come to surface since making that video. Everyone in management agreed that James Storm was a great wrestler and always had the crowd behind him. But Eric Bischoff has said in shoot interviews since that James Storm didn't ever want to take part when it involved him losing, and he got a sulky face on. He said if you watch James Storm's expression when he comes through the curtains, you can tell if he's going to win or lose a match. I don't know if I've tested this yet, you tell me. Another story I've heard is that James Storm was a bit of a coward backstage and was too scared to approach Scott Steiner. Well, I guess most of us would be. Steiner refused to lose to him because he didn't see Storm as a star. Well, you were wrong there, Scotty. Despite all this, James Storm for me should have gone a lot further in his TNA career, and it's a damn shame that it didn't happen. Maybe he can have one last run, but he seems to be doing okay in NWA. So that's the list. Did anyone surprise you there? I think Hernandez and Kaz making the list was quite a surprise for me. Thanks for watching my Patreons, I love you all.